One single panel. That's the largest uninsulated surface in most homes. And it isn't a window, a wall, or the roof. It's the garage door. A standard steel garage door is often nothing more than a thin sheet of metal, acting like a giant radiator, pulling heat straight out of an attached garage all winter long and dragging down the temperature of whatever room sits above or beside it in the process. There's a specific comparison that shows exactly how much heat a bare garage door loses compared to literally any other wall in the house. And once you see that number, it's hard to look at a garage door the same way again. We'll get to it in a minute. Most of what's on this channel costs less than $20 and takes less than half an hour to understand. That's the whole premise of the Independence Files. Subscribe if that's worth having on hand. An attached garage that isn't insulated doesn't just stay cold on its own, it actively pulls heat out of the rooms connected to it. A bedroom or living space sitting directly above or next to an uninsulated garage routinely runs several degrees colder than the rest of the house during winter, forcing the furnace to run longer just to compensate for one specific cold spot most homeowners never trace back to its actual source. Here's the part that catches most people off guard. It's usually the room they'd least expect. Not the room closest to a drafty window, the room sharing a wall with the garage, which almost nobody thinks to check first. Over a full heating season, that constant extra furnace runtime adds up in a way most people never connect to a single cold room. The system isn't inefficient overall, it's just perpetually fighting one specific weak point, which shows up as a modest but steady increase across every heating bill for the entire winter, rather than one obvious spike anyone would notice and investigate. Most people who notice a persistently cold room try to fix it by cranking the thermostat, adding a space heater, or blaming poor duct balancing, all reasonable guesses that miss the actual cause sitting on the other side of an uninsulated wall or garage door entirely. Here's what almost nobody realizes about a standard steel garage door. It's essentially a giant single-pane window made of metal instead of glass. Metal conducts heat extremely efficiently, which means a bare garage door transfers heat straight through itself far faster than an insulated wall ever would, turning the entire door into a continuous cold surface radiating chill into the garage, and by extension, into anything sharing a wall with it. So here's the real question worth asking. If the single largest surface in an attached garage is also the single worst insulated surface in the entire house, how much of a drafty room or a cold spot that never gets fixed is actually coming from a door nobody thinks to insulate at all? Think of it like wearing a thick winter coat with one giant metal panel sewn into the chest. It wouldn't matter how good the rest of the coat was. Heat would pour out through that one uninsulated section fast enough to undermine the whole thing. A home with insulated walls and an uninsulated garage door works exactly the same way. The overall system is only as good as its weakest, most exposed surface. Mechanically, this comes down to a material property called thermal conductivity, how efficiently a given material transfers heat through itself. Metal has dramatically higher thermal conductivity than wood, insulation foam, or drywall, which is exactly why a bare steel door loses heat so much faster than any comparably sized wall section built with standard insulation. This isn't a new discovery specific to garages. Builders and engineers have understood metal's poor insulating properties for as long as metal buildings have existed, and commercial steel structures have relied on added insulation layers for decades, specifically because bare metal panels alone perform terribly at holding heat, regardless of how thick or sturdy the metal itself is. Pole barns and metal warehouses learned this lesson early and expensively. An uninsulated steel building can swing to extreme interior temperatures in both directions, baking in summer and losing heat almost instantly in winter, which is exactly why insulated metal panel systems became standard in commercial construction long before anyone thought to apply the same logic to a residential garage door. What's interesting is that garage doors specifically lagged behind other parts of home construction in adopting the same insulation principle. Walls, attics, and even windows saw significant efficiency improvements standardized into building codes over the decades, while garage doors, treated more as a mechanical, moving component than part of the building envelope, were often left as an afterthought, insulated only in premium models rather than as a baseline standard. Manufacturers of garage door insulation kits publish R-value ratings, the same standardized measurement used for wall and attic insulation, specifically so buyers can compare the actual thermal performance improvement against a bare door. That's a direct, testable specification, not a vague comfort claim. And once you see that specific number, which is coming up shortly, It explains exactly why this one detail gets overlooked so consistently. Homeowners who've measured room temperature before and after insulating a garage door report a consistent pattern. Noticeably warmer adjacent rooms, particularly rooms directly above an attached garage, along with a garage itself that no longer feels like a walk-in freezer the moment the door closes on a cold day. 3 separate threads pointing the same direction. Decades of established thermal conductivity science explaining exactly why bare metal performs so poorly, standardized R-value specifications from insulation manufacturers, and consistent temperature improvements reported by homeowners who've measured their own results. That's convergent evidence, not a single anecdotal claim. Keep that door versus wall comparison from the start in mind. The actual numbers behind it are coming up shortly, and they're more lopsided than most people expect. It's worth being precise about what varies here. The exact temperature improvement depends on garage size, how much wall area is shared with living space, and regional climate. There's no single universal number that applies to every home identically. What's consistent is the underlying thermal conductivity problem and the direction of improvement once it's addressed. So if this is such a well-understood weak point, why don't garage doors just come insulated as standard equipment? It comes down to cost positioning. Builders and door manufacturers compete heavily on upfront price for a component many buyers see as purely functional. A bare steel door is simply cheaper to manufacture and sell than an insulated one, and most buyers evaluating a garage door focus on price and appearance rather than thermal performance they can't see or feel in a showroom. There's a simpler reason underneath that, too. A garage is often treated, both by builders and homeowners, as separate from the real insulated envelope of the house, even though it frequently shares walls, and sometimes even ceiling space, directly with living areas that absolutely do need to stay warm. As for what this actually involves, rigid foam insulation panels sized to fit standard garage door sections, typically costing around $8 for enough material to cover one section, attached directly to the interior face of each door panel. This adds a genuine thermal barrier to the same metal surface that was previously transferring heat straight through with nothing to slow it down. The mechanism mirrors the coat with a metal panel principle directly. Adding insulation to the door's interior face interrupts the direct, efficient heat transfer through bare metal, giving the door roughly the same kind of thermal resistance a standard insulated wall already has, instead of leaving it as the one weak point undermining everything else. Now, back to the comparison from the start, how a bare garage door stacks up against a normal wall. An uninsulated steel garage door can have an R value close to 0, while a standard insulated exterior wall typically sits somewhere around R13 to R21, depending on construction. That's not a small gap. It's the difference between a wall built to hold heat and a door built with essentially no resistance to it at all. There are honest limitations worth being upfront about here. This addresses the door itself. It won't fix a garage that's cold because of gaps around the door's edges, an uninsulated garage ceiling, or exposed framing elsewhere in the space. A fully cold garage often has more than one weak point, and the door is simply the largest, most impactful one to start with. Detached garages with no shared walls to living space will see less overall household comfort benefit than attached garages, even though the garage itself will still run noticeably warmer, and the household-wide impact specifically depends on how much wall area that garage actually shares with rooms people spend time in. Older doors with significant rust, warping, or gaps around the edges may need those issues addressed separately, since insulation panels alone don't fix a poor seal. A door that doesn't close tightly loses heat around its edges regardless of how well insulated the panel surface itself becomes. This isn't a substitute for full garage insulation, walls, ceiling, and door together, and it's not being presented as one. It addresses the single largest, most impactful weak point first, nothing more and nothing less. Which loops back to where this started. The exact same thermal conductivity principle that makes an uninsulated garage door lose heat so efficiently applies just as directly to an uninsulated basement bulkhead door or an exterior metal utility door. Any large, thin metal surface acting as an accidental radiator for whatever room it's attached to. The coldest room in a house often isn't cold because of a mystery draft. It's cold because of the single largest, most obvious surface nobody thought to treat as part of the insulated envelope in the first place. If you've got a persistently cold room near your garage, or you're wondering whether this is actually what's causing it, drop it in the comments below. I read all of them, and I'll do my best to help you figure it out.